Welcome to Bitter Reality Brewing. Today we're doing a double Belgian Raspberry Blond Ale, or Belgian Double Raspberry, however you want to say it. It's kind of a makeup for the grain to drain that we had when we did the Cascade and the American Blonde Ale. So instead, I bought two of these. So we have two 1 pound things of simple candy syrup with raspberries from Cascade. So Cascade beer candy syrup, they make all kinds of cool stuff, and they had hooked us up previously, and like I said, the grain to drain. So I ordered two of these the other day, got them in. Don't forget, like, subscribe. Thank you again for all the sharing. Much appreciated. Things are growing very quickly. Also, if you haven't noticed, we changed this about a video or two back, and it's what's on tap. I know a lot of beer brewers like to share what they have on tap and compare, but basically this has all been the same for a couple weeks now, but I ran out of the Beastly Belge, and if you saw the 15 Quake yeasts where we compared each yeast against each other, yeah, I took all the remaining liquid and filled almost an entire keg. So it's 15 different, or should we say 13 different Quake yeasts and two farmhouse. I just called it 15 and we're all good. But basically it's a pale ale with 15 different yeasts all blended together. It tastes really good. I can't tell you which yeast I'm tasting, but it tastes really good. So back to the brewing. We've got 10 pounds of German Pilsner in between these two containers. I threw 6 ounces of acid malt in there to kind of bring the pH down, which we'll double check. Plus we've got some brewing salts. The other key is other than we're gonna add this at the very last minute because I just want to get as much of the sugar and raspberry and I don't want to leave any behind in the Anvil. We're gonna drop in 1 ounce of Cascade at 60 minutes just for our bittering hop. Not worried if we get any fruit or any kind of, flavors out of there. I doubt at that early. But at the last 5 minutes, I'm gonna drop in, let's see if I can pronounce this, Savinjski, Styrian, Goldings, or Styrian Goldings. I'm only looking for the spiciness out of those hops. I like those hops because they do impart a nice spiciness into the beer. We're gonna drop that in the last 5 minutes. And then for the yeast, as you know, I've got 6 yeasts going. You know me, I always have a backup yeast. And I've got something special brewing for tomorrow. But right now, I'm looking at making this a Belgian. So we're looking at the Abbey Ale, which is Whitelabs 530, specifically for its spiciness, right up between the the high 60s, low 70s. It imparts a nice spiciness to the beer, which I want to do because when you're adding fruit, if you get something a little spicy in there, it kind of balances out really nice and adds a little complexity to the flavor. So let's get brewing. We've got our Anvil, we've got our Jaded Scylla, and of course my favorite brewing paddle. Let's get brewing. Okay, we're at 152, which is where I want to mash in. This is up to everybody for personal preference, but recommendation, I leave mine. I don't crank it way up and hope it falls, because with the Anvil, it seems to stay or get very close to temp very quick when you're at 100%. Once I mash in, general census is to drop it down below 80%. I usually drop it to 80, sometimes 75, but usually 80. If you don't, you can see temperature spikes as much as I've seen 9 degrees on camera, which I missed and caught later. Normally I see 3 to 4 degrees fluctuation where it will actually spike. So definitely bring down your power to at least 80%, if not lower. Otherwise, you're probably gonna be spiking over there. As the temperatures rise up, there's enzymes that you may not capture that you could have captured at a lower temperature. So you definitely wanna keep that temperature under control. Okay, here we go. Oh, and I don't know if you can see, I got the small batch adapter in there. I feel it helps maximize my efficiencies on top of everything else that we do. And since we don't have a huge grain bill, we're just gonna go right ahead and get this going. Yeah, I probably should get a spare pump before that thing breaks for whatever reason. Okay, we're at 75% and we're still sitting at 153. So let's take it down to 70 and see what happens. I've seen some people say 65, but I've never gone below 75. Okay, we'll let this bad boy run. Okay, it's been 75 minutes. We're gonna crank it up to 168. I dropped it all the way down to 65 because I had a small spike of about 4 degrees. Still got quite a bit of liquid in there. That's okay. We'll let that drain for a little bit, and then we'll start pouring this large water over the top and kick her up to a boil. It's good to have a pot like this because when you take this off, you want to set it somewhere. Otherwise, it's just going to keep dripping. You can do a big giant Rubbermaid or a big bucket. That would work too, but I like this because it sits on top and drips inside and grabs a little extra. As some of you've already seen before, it's my pitcher plant that catches the bugs flying near the wort. And beginning of the season, that thing was probably less than half, if not a quarter of that size. So it's eating lots of bugs and doing very well. Makes a brew day a lot better when you're not having to deal with the bugs. I'm in Florida. Yeah, it's November, but yeah, we still have bugs year round. Won't come to Florida. No snow though. This is what I mean about having a big pot. It literally sits right on the very top. It's beautiful. I know I say don't leave the lid on, but as it starts to foam up on top, that actually helps trap the heat to get the heat up there a little faster. And you got to watch it. Kind of why they say break. Basically, it's breaking up that foam and everything starts to boil. But I have had a little bit of a foam over one time because I wasn't paying attention. I had a lot more in there. Right now we were sitting at about 6.5. It almost looks like 6 3/4, but it's because we're sitting at 204 degrees Fahrenheit, so everything expands. We'll boil it down hopefully to right at about 5 1/4, and we should be able to rock and roll. There you go. You can see the foam rising. You don't need your big spoon to kind of break it up. Some of that air out of there. Well, I feel a lot better with it. As you can see, as I'm stirring, helping release some of the heat at the top, the foam starts to go down a little bit, and then I stir on the top, and it seems to come back up again. Come on. Come on, break. Okay, I turned off the heat for a second. That was very close. I don't know why it's doing that, but hey, not that big of a batch. That was very close. A little insanity there. Okay, we're gonna turn the heat back up, but I may bring it down a little on the percentage. We'll hit 100% first. Let's see what happens. See if we can get our rolling boil. We gotta boil off some extra wort there to get it down to where we need to be. Didn't do anything different. There we go. We got our break. You should be able to see it. Yeah. There we go. But as you can see, the foam got all the way up to the very top of the lip. So we almost had a foam over, which I was not expecting at all. That's the problem. When you don't expect it and you aren't paying attention, that's gonna be when it happens, and you're gonna go, man, I can't believe I let that happen. I have heard of some people having problems with all brands, including the Anvil, when you get too much liquid pouring over and it damages some of the electronics. So it's probably even more important. Okay, I've got to stop and start stirring again. Don't forget to kind of scrape the bottom, preferably with a wooden or plastic. That way you know you're getting any kind of buildup on that bottom off of there. You don't have any kind of reset issues. The low density burners on the Anvil, it's rare, but it can happen. Just something to be very aware of. Okay, we're gonna boil this for 90 minutes, or actually we're gonna boil it for 30 to our hop addition, and then let the next 60 go with 5-minute addition towards the very end, and our other standard add-ons such as yeast nutrient and our whirfloc tablet pre-crushed. Okay, I had to drop the power to 75% for a minute so I could run in the house and get the hops. Put the basket in, it dropped down 2 degrees. I'm not worried, I'll pick right back up. It's our Cascade Hops, which, yeah, smell-o-vision. Go ahead and drop that in there. We got 60 minutes left in the boil. And of course, it's been trying to foam up constantly, so I've been doing nothing but stirring nonstop. Never had a grain do this, but I don't brew with Pilsner that often. So maybe this is what happens when you put Pilsner in 220 volts of boiling power. It goes out of control, but hey, I know we're gonna have a good boil. It's all good. Okay, we're on the last 5 minutes. So let's go ahead. Add the Styrian Goldings. Get some spiciness going. That's 2 ounces. Go ahead and add a little yeast nutrient. Crushed whirfloc tablet. Okay, and I've already sterilized the Jaded Brewing Scylla because we're going to let this ride into the last 5 minutes. We'll pull the hops out, drop the Scylla, and start chilling. So it's going to be a last minute drop. I've done it a few times. Actually, I've done it quite a few times. Never had any issues. So key is not storing your Scylla somewhere in like a garage with a bunch of dust and dirt, and making sure you star sand it and hose it off, or like I just did, partially dropped it into the boiling wort for a minute. I'm gonna go ahead and add the Cascade raspberry beer candy after we cool it and dump it into the actual fermenter. The reason I feel is it won't cook off as much of the raspberry aroma and flavor, and kind of maximize the flavor, which is what I'm going for anyway. So that's what we're gonna try. Okay, sorry, took a bit. Almost burned myself with getting the hot basket out. Drop the Sola. It's already dropping fast. It's already 153. So we should be good in no time. Once it gets down, relatively cool. I may throw the other pot out here with some ice and just chill it really fast so we can get it down to pitching temperatures. Got lots to do today, and still got to prepare for the stout we're doing tomorrow. Yes, tomorrow will be an oyster stout. Never done one. Got to do a first. Always has to be a first. Okay, this is the red raspberry. Got a seal on top, just for your awareness. It smells like a very intense raspberry. So pour that in there. And you know me, I'll rinse this out with a little bit of the wort. There's second one. Okay. And because I don't trust the bugs, we'll put a little cup over the top. Keep them out. Okay, we're at 88. I think I'm getting ready to switch it over here. We have the ice bath going here. Smells like somebody's burning something. I'm hoping it's not my pump, but we'll see. And I don't mean that pump, I mean the sump pump. heat waste. Okay, I'm gonna let the chill thing keep going for a minute or two more. I'm gonna start moving the beer over here. It says 71, but this thing feels nice and cold. And there we go. I know it's getting aerated a little bit now, but. Okay, we have our double raspberry Belgian blonde here. And I was only shooting for 5 1/4 gallons, and that's where I should have been, but I just had an insane amount of foam throughout the whole boil, more than I've ever seen in my life. Although I haven't been boiling at 220 for that long, I've never boiled fresh Pilsner at that long, and it was crazy. I was expecting our brew house efficiency and efficiencies to kind of come in low with all that extra not boiling off. But even when I, adjusted for that extra wort and did the measurements, it's still saying 86 BHE or 86.6 estimated efficiencies. I'm not sure what's going on, but I verified the grains, because if you don't know, then a lot of people, we don't even think about this, but I'm using Weyermann's, if I can say that correctly, German Pilsner, and it has a higher diastatic power than if I was using the Belgian Pilsner I used to use. Considerably, I would get a higher ABV using what I used versus what I used to use. That was in there. And if you're not following what I'm saying is, if you use the Belgian Pilsner in your measurements and you use the German Weyermann's Pilsner, it's going to look like your efficiencies are higher than they really are, because you're getting more diastatic power, which means you're going to get more enzymes and you're going to be able to get more of that carbohydrates breaking down and turning into sugar. So it's going to be more efficient by using a different brand. And it sounds weird, but not all brands are created equal, and I think we know that in pretty much any and everything that's out there that's made. So I'm gonna go ahead, I looked at all the yeasts, I've smelled them. I'm sticking to the Whitelabs Abbey 530. I want that spice. I'm dying for the spice. So we'll go ahead and put this in here. The other thing I wanted to show you that I'm gonna add, let's grab a magnet here and catch that stir bar so we don't end up dropping it in there. Plus, I can only use about half of this because this is all of my 530 and it's doing really good. I don't wanna have to go buy more. Why? Because I'm cheap and I don't see the point of spending more money for something that I can maintain. And if it starts losing its viability, then great, I'll go buy some more. The other item I want to add here is this right here, which I keep forgetting what it's called, so I keep leaving this around. Whitelabs Clearity Ferm. I tried it in the Quake, or the 15 Quake Pale Ale that we did. Clarified amazingly well, beyond all of our normal clarification type systems like the whirfloc tablet and stuff like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop this in, plus I figure a little less gluten in my diet is probably not a bad thing. You dump it in when you add your yeast to around that temp, or pitching temperature as they call it. My pitching temperature was much higher than Norwegian yeast, so I guess it was okay. But yeah, we'll see how that does, or goes, however you want to say it. Also, one of the things I put in one of my brewing tips was always have 2 of everything that's glass. Yeah, normally I break things. My wife was over here somehow and knocked this off. So I ordered another one, and same one I had before, except it wasn't the full kit since I already have the actual hydrometers, but it's a glass hydrometer tube. If you have a plastic one and it's kind of foggy looking, get one of these. I know it's easier to break. You keep your plastic as a spare. Comes with a little scrub thing, comes with a cleaning cloth that I will probably never use unless maybe on my cell phone. But I love this because I can see through it easily. And I couldn't find my magnifying glass earlier to read the hydrometer. Didn't think about it. Smartphones, you can take the photo and just zoom in, and I was able to read it and see it very easily. We're sitting at, and I've already forgotten, I'll put it up there, but a little too high. Let's just say we exceeded the 7.5 ABV, and we're kind of sitting on the edge of a Belgian strong ale instead of a Belgian blonde ale. And I mean, we kind of be on the low side for that and the high side for this, so it's all good. Either way, raspberry blonde sounds better than raspberry golden. So go ahead, put this in, stick it in the fermenter, and let it go. Thank you again for joining us here at Bitter Reality Brewing. Don't forget, like, subscribe. Thank you for all the support. Remember, grain to glass. So this is part 1. There will be a part 2 to see how it went out. We'll keg it, carbonate it, try it out. And if you're watching this and haven't seen some of our videos or subscribed, we've got a really cool oyster stout we're doing tomorrow, which that video will come up shortly after this video does. And of course, grain to glass. We'll do a part 2 where we taste test it, see how it goes. So, and this was a makeup for a grain to drain. Thank you again for joining us here at Bitter Reality Brewing.